I was born at Rock Spring Farm in Leesburg, Virginia, and I am the third generation to live in it. My family have been there for over 120 years. Went to school in Leesburg, and in those days there was one schoolhouse, and I went off to boarding school for my last 2 years of high school. And from there, for college, I went to college in the Boston area to LaSalle and Auburndale. And in the meantime, I met my husband-to-be. Jack was unlike anybody I'd ever met in my life. He was fascinating. And I think the first thing he said to me was, "I don't intend to get married until I've been 2 years in the fleet." And I thought, why in the world is he telling me this? I don't care when he gets married. And of course, as it ended up, we were married the day after he graduated from the academy. The role I played as a military wife, a Navy wife, became very involved once he was executive officer on a ship or a submarine. I was a volunteer and I worked with the wives on the ship. I worked at Navy Relief as a volunteer where we helped people that were having money problems. And there was always some volunteer position to do, and I enjoyed doing those. I was the go-to person. All of us were the wives of men that were totally out of contact for over half of every year. And so when problems arose, and particularly in some place like Hawaii, where a lot of these young women came from the Midwest, had never been away from home, you had to have somebody there to give them a hand with a bit, and they were big problems, some of them too, and you never knew what it was going to be. There were automobile accidents, and then the parents would call me because they wanted to be sure that their daughter was all right, even though there was this accident. It was everything you can imagine. When we lived in Japan, I studied Japanese flower arranging in the Ichiyo school, and eventually actually got my teaching degree in that. So I was interested in flowers and in working with flowers, and a cousin of mine who was in the Leesburg Garden Club suggested I join. I was proposed and accepted, and I ended up being president of that club, and then I went to also join the Loudoun Garden Club and ended up being president of that club, and then went to Richmond and chaired the Flower Shows Committee for the Garden Club of Virginia and was on that board too. Then eventually I became president of Loudoun, and I also chaired Garden Week in both clubs, but with lots of help. And all of these things, the women that are members are so helpful, and they're so happy to help you and do what needs to be done. The other thing that I have done that's been a tremendous sense of pleasure to me is I studied painting when we were in Charlottesville, and I'm a watercolorist. Well, I was on the board of the Marshall home, and then I was at Malvern Park, which was also interesting. And you met different people from around the county that were on the boards and had different interests. So I enjoy doing it. Well, I think what I've been part of has helped make Loudoun County, not that I personally have done anything, but as an organizations that want to preserve these houses, these historic houses, Dodona Manor, Marshall's home. It's just, I think it's very important. It keeps a part of time stationary around, and you see how people really lived in those days and what was important, and it keeps a memory of the people themselves alive too. They remember me for that. I care about others. I'd like to be remembered for as a painter, as a flower arranger, as someone who cares about other people, And as a volunteer, when something's needed, for the most part, I usually will volunteer. If they say, "Can you come help us at such and such a thing?" Yeah, sure. And I just think they ought to think of me as a friend and an acquaintance, a friend, and know that I love them dearly and enjoy their company.